some of the practices or technologies physically cost money. Others is tightening up things, I suppose, like the calving pattern, which is a practice and very rewarding from a efficiency point of view. And also, like, talking to employees, and they'd say, if which farm would you choose? One that's compact and all go really intense for that 6 weeks, or one where the calving pattern is spread out. They will say, 9 times out of 10, they'll say the compact calving all the way.
It's great to be back with another Environment Edge podcast, and you're very welcome to the show.
Teagasc Dairy Specialist Martina Gormley joins us to discuss labour challenges and solutions on farm.
I'm Cathal Summers.
And I'm Deirdre Glenn.
Your Teagasc Sustainability Advisors. And we're back for another Environment Edge podcast number 88, and here we go.
Martina, you're really welcome to the show. Could you give us a quick overview of the dairy industry in terms of number of people working on dairy farms at the moment?
So in terms of the number of people working on Irish dairy farms, Deirdre, the CSO, looking at the data there's 34,000 people. So a big proportion of those people, non-family, would be working on dairy farms. So look, roughly speaking, you're probably talking about 50-60% of that figure is on dairy farms.
And is there a lot of labour availability through their own family, or is it, do they take people on from other areas to try and farm, to help out on the farm?
So there is a big proportion still of family help. While it has reduced over the last number of years, there still is a big proportion of family working on dairy farms. There's as many family as there is dairy farmers themselves. And look, when you look at the cow numbers and the average numbers, so look, there's about 1.6 million dairy cows, roughly speaking about 18,000 dairy farmers. And in terms then, when we look at the average herd size, over the last number of years, we've seen that increase fairly quickly over since quotas were removed to now 100 cows on average. Okay, so for probably you're talking about maybe 65% of the 18,000 dairy farmers. They're at the 100 cows, so the average herd size or below. And a lot of the help there can be part-time help with family, and also with people that aren't related to the farmers.
Sorry, Martina, would 100 cows on a farm, would one labour unit suffice?
No,
Okay.
it wouldn't. No, now what we see now and what we know from the research is that the most efficient farm out there in the 100 cow, we'll say the average herd size bracket, would be about 25 hours per cow. Okay, so 25 multiplied by 100 is 2,500 hours. Okay, now that we have a handful, literally, I'd say maximum of probably 10 farmers we could find, if we're lucky, that would be hitting that sort of a metric, or that sort of efficiency figure. By and large, the majority of farmers that are in the 100 cow herd size bracket would be at probably 3,000 hours plus. Okay, so if you look at a farmer doing, say, 50 hours per week, or maybe a little bit with it, over just to keep the numbers round, I suppose, 50 weeks in the year, that's 2,500 hours. So there's definitely 500, 600, 700 hours, depending on the farm, of work that the farmer just can't physically possibly do, and particularly in spring. Okay, when it's quite intense and busy for the first 6 weeks, it's just not physically possible for or sustainable, I probably should say, for a farmer to calve down 100 cows on their own and do all the tasks. And look, that's where, look, plenty of farmers have done it and tried it and got caught in the past where people let them down and different things. That's where really we're seeing burnout happening on farms. So we absolutely don't. We want to minimize that or reduce it as much as we can. So really what we're seeing for the average herd size is the farmer plus 2 to 3 part-time people doing some relief milking, kind of fixed 3-4 milkings per week. So that means the person is there for the whole year.
That backup is very important too, as well, for their mental health, really, too, Martina, isn't it?
It's extremely important. And the other thing, what's really important by not having all your eggs in the one basket, so to speak, Deirdre, is that with the best will in the world, something will happen. People get sick, people get injured, whatever, personal things going on in people's life. If you have just yourself and one part-time person for spring, it is highly likely you're going to end up on your own for for every second or every third spring it's going to happen. So I just say to farmers, don't be surprised, right? Don't be shocked or surprised. And it's a good thing if you have another part-time person to kick in. And really, like it's students probably, Deirdre, you're looking at. It's students, it's other farmers locally. We're seeing some parents that are home full time and they're just delighted to be able to get a few hours. It's flexible around childcare, so on and so forth. So a range of people out there, the part-time work is suiting. And like dairy farming is extremely flexible, it's open Monday to Sunday. And there's so many different tasks that not necessarily have to be all done at a specific time. That can be tweaked. So definitely, Deirdre, the message is, and what I suppose a lot of farmers are really realizing, I need more than one person or I'm going to be caught out on my own. And that is serious burnout. You can't do everything properly. You're going to, you're not going to be able to get the cows to grass. You're just be head down in the yard. You just won't be able to do the grassland management. So there's more silage in the diet and you're going to lose out somewhere else. And also, most importantly, for yourself from a mental health point of view. So that's a really important point and something that more and more farmers are learning and starting to change their thinking of. This one person, it's now one person plus maybe 2 or 3 other part-time people.
Now, Martina, the minute that you started mentioning hours there, I pulled out the calculator and started tapping away like mad here. And when you're starting to talk about, 57 hours or something per week for 3,000 hours a year, you're into nearly 60 hours a week. For any farmer listening to this would say, yeah, but sure, that's normal. Like we do that the whole time. It was always like that. But for a non-farmer listening, if you put out a job spec and said, you have to work 60 hours a week now and you're getting paid X amount, I don't think they'd feel too happy about it.
No, they wouldn't. Yeah, look, it is there's a lot of farmers that are doing 60 hours a week, genuinely doing 60 hours a week across 50 weeks of the year. So it is clocking up to 3,000 hours. I suppose they are the owner of the business, so I suppose we do have to make the distinction between the owner of the business or somebody with a serious amount of responsibility versus somebody that's an employee and doesn't have the same amount of responsibility or that. So I suppose the expectation is, well, look, someone who owns the business is going to have more hours, absolutely, and that's fair enough. But what we are seeing because of burnout. Okay, we are seeing more and more farmers saying my target is 50 hours per week. If I could get it down 50 hours per week on average across maybe, 50 or 46 weeks in the year to allow for days off here and there and plus annual leave or for a holiday or that it'll bring it down to 2,500 hours or 2,400, in around those kind of hours.
More reasonable
And
anyway. Yeah.
more reasonable. And
Yeah.
across the year, like you might be only on average shaving an hour and a half or 2 hours, but it's massive. It adds up to a lot. And more and more farmers are starting to look at this because traditionally it would have been in terms of time off, a day off for the ploughing. That's what farmers would say, like, oh, I take a day off for the ploughing. But now we are seeing more and more realizing that there needs to be a little bit better of a balance there in terms of work and time off work. So we are starting to see, 3, 4, 5 weeks off in the
Yeah,
year, which
I
which
think
is
most
great.
farmers would say to me, especially when they're towards their end of their career, maybe doing a bit of a handover, to say that the biggest The biggest mistake they made was maybe not spend enough time with their kids when they're young, and if they had to do it all over again, they would have maybe tried to get help. But that brings us to our next question. We have farmers, a lot of farmers now are looking at work-life balance and try not to be killed on the farm all the time, get a bit of help in. But the next step is when you do go look for the help, how available is that help? And is there kind of challenges around getting people onto the farm to help?
There's definitely challenges, and there's definitely probably a skills shortage. So and look, this isn't just in agriculture. There's a skills shortage across the board in many industries, and globally, there is a competition for people. But yes, we are seeing it on dairy farms. Um, so yeah, so look, there is to answer your question. I suppose rolling on from that, what are farmers doing about it? I suppose, Cathal, is the next question. Um, so in terms of the part-time people, not as much of a challenge, I would say, from just being on the ground. Um, and that kind of lends itself to the skills that I talked about a minute ago, in that if the farmer owner of the business is there full time, I'd be saying to farmers, do you need someone experienced? Because a lot of the time they'd have put up an ad saying experienced person required. And I said, why do they need to be experienced? And they said, well, actually they don't, because I can train them in. But for we'll say larger scale farms or multi-units or that, where the farmer can't manage all the tasks or can't be there all the time, that's where you need the skills coming in, or the more experienced person. And that's where farmers, I suppose, are some farmers that are looking for multiple people are struggling a bit. So what are they doing? They're trying to I suppose, work hard at making their farm attractive and competitive. Like that's the big one. To be able to compete from a facilities point of view, from a time point of view. And like we know that employees, like what's really important to a lot of employees is flexibility and hours of work, big ones. And next to that is your facilities and obviously your pay. So more and more farmers have really, I suppose, identified that themselves and are working really hard within their own farms to make it as attractive as possible, in order to attract people to work on the farm.
It's funny you say that because I just noticed on social media there a bit there in the last 6 or 12 months that some of the job advertisements are coming up and people repost job advertisements, particularly on dairy farms, and they're almost like an ad on television to draw you in, like almost like a sales pitch. And I was looking at it saying, geez, that's some turnaround from 15, 20 years ago when you were delighted to get a job on a farm. But that's the way it's gone. But on the other end of it, then you'd hear stories of farmers looking for help and they can't get that experience you talked about. And there's kind of people rolling up to the farm, in a pair of white runners and maybe never set foot in a farm before looking to help you out. Can that kind of system work as well? Like you said, if you train them in, if they're willing to work.
If the and what farmers and the research has identified, the exact same thing, is that number one, from an employee point of view, is attitude. So their attitude. It's not necessary experience, unless, as I said, it's a second unit or something, that you need them to have that experience. But it's attitude. So if the attitude is there, it doesn't matter if they have no experience whatsoever on farms. And in fact, farmers would actually say, you know what, they're actually turned out to be the best employees, because I trained them into the way I like a task to be done. And because they knew no different, they completely followed that. So it's their attitude that they want to work and they want to learn. And yes, absolutely. And it is working.
Don't be afraid of it. Yeah.
Martina, there's loads of technologies around as well, I suppose, to help to reduce labour on a farm, like once a day milking or the robots. Are farmers going in that direction now to try and save on labour?
There. Yeah, so it's twofold, Deirdre, really. So there's the saving on labour, or the reducing the total hours of input required on farms. But there's also the element of making the farm a nicer place to work in. So for example, the Bobman is a piece of equipment that farmers are buying. And again, so lime in cubicles with a bucket and lime. And depending on the number you have, is probably not, in fairness, the nicest job out there. So
Reckon you're
again,
back, Martina.
yes, and
Yeah.
covered in lime coming out of the out of a 200 cubicle shed. So far nicer to hop up on a above man. So yes, they are. There's plenty of technologies and there's also plenty of practices. So you mentioned, Deirdre, the once a day, so which is a practice. So we are seeing that increasing uptake in springtime, so once a day in February. So there's been a lot of research in Moore Park on the once a day milking at different times or frequencies. So we are seeing an uptake. So just particularly in the first 6 weeks, just to reduce the number of tasks and reduce that evening milking. So we are seeing improvements there. The calving pattern, like a lot of farmers that are, I suppose, very interested in the labour efficiency and making the farm as easy as possible to work in, I suppose, they would say to me a practice that they think has really helped them is the calving pattern. So by having compact calving, yes, it's intense, it's busy, but they say you can plan it and it's blocked. So it simplifies the system that you're not constantly calving cows, milking, breeding, drying off at the same time. You're, really intense, you're calving cows, then there's a break before breeding. And you're finished, your calf feeding is over because you've compacted the rearing of your calves as well. It's easier then to rear your calves because they're the compactness of them. And then you have the opportunity to dry off the cows on the 1st of December if you want to, because you've got the milk out of the cows. So while I suppose what I'm really saying there, while some of the practices or technologies physically cost money, others is tightening up things, I suppose, like the calving pattern, which is a practice and very rewarding from a efficiency point of view. And also like, talking to employees and they'd say, if which farm would you choose? One that's compact and, all go really intense for that 6 weeks, or one where the calving pattern is spread out. They will say, 9 times out of 10, they'll say the compact calving all the way.
Is there training available to employees now going on to farms? What kind of training is available for young people or older people or just people in general who want to take up a job on a farm?
Yeah, so the FRS have training and have a website where people can go on to see the different types of training that they have. But they would have training, so kind of in-house training for their milking operatives in terms, like some may come, some with a little bit of experience, some may not. And they will train them up. So there's that training there, particularly on the milking. And then they would have other courses from a machinery point of view if someone was interested in learning how to drive tractors and different things, like different machinery. So they have that as well. They've also launched a program there a couple of weeks ago, a new training program for people who are deciding that they think, farming could be a career that they might like to get into, but have limited experience, so kind of more of beginners. So that's after being launched. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. There's also a milking course with Teagasc. Now for that course, it's not a beginner, so the person would need to have, I think it's 100 hours of milking, which isn't that much really. It's probably 50 milkings done on a few farms before they do that course. So that course is there for the last 10 years. And then look, there's probably a few other outside, companies doing courses as well, but that's, I think, the majority. But a big percentage of the I suppose the more on-farm training is with the farmer. Okay, so taking on people with no experience and the farmer training them up themselves.
Well, every farmer has their own way of going as well, Martina, don't they? They have their own formula for how their farm works.
Correct, absolutely. And we'd often say just because someone has milked on some other farm doesn't mean they're going to be able to milk on your farm. It's a different machine, it's a different setup. But yeah, the big thing about the training, I think, is that it's done at a time of a year that allows the farmer to be actually able to just to take the time with that person. Like the last thing you want is someone coming onto your farm the end of January. it really doesn't lend itself to starting off at a good point for the farmer or for the new employee. So what we would be, I suppose, advising farmers, if they can at all, a few weeks prior to calving, to bring the person in a quieter time and to get them used to the whole farm, the setup, and so on and so forth. And it certainly works much better, Deirdre.
Farmer has to build a bit of confidence, and they need a bit of time to get confidence in a new employee anyway, because particularly if you're going into one of the most intense times of the year and it's tiring and all the rest of it. But I suppose another thing I kind of jumped to my mind there when you were talking earlier on about the difference between someone that has no skill coming in and you can train them up, and then the person that you need to have skill, almost like a farm manager. Is there, I know we have farm apprenticeships there at the moment, but do we have enough? Do we need more of them?
Yeah, there is a shortage. Yeah, well, we do need more of them. So that is one of the areas when we were talking about earlier on in terms of the shortage. That is an area.
Do you think we'll get more in? Is there an appetite for people to join those courses now, or are they kind of going down more the degree routes?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Like, this is the first year of that new apprenticeship course.
Yeah.
So look, obviously they've made modifications to that course to try and make it more appealing to attract more people. So it's the first year of it. So I suppose it's a pilot really in a sense, but the aim is absolutely, Cathal, to get more people and attract more people into that course, to get trained up for I suppose the farm managers, that really is, there's a shortage out there.
And there's probably a bit of an elephant in the room there. We talked a lot about skills and all that kind of stuff at the moment, but I always say to groups of farmers when I'm chatting to them that compared to 20 years ago, farming's almost revolutionized. The farmers are doing a really good job now to bring a lot of science right back to the farm, and they're able to do things we couldn't do 20 years ago, different practices and new technologies. Has that impacted on our time, I suppose?
Yes, I would think so, because like when you look, there was research done, I suppose, a good number of years, like 20, 30 years ago. And when you look at I suppose, the practices and the hours worked and the hours required to run a farm, and you look at it at the most recent studies now, you can see a massive improvement. So I suppose the investments, and the training and the discussion groups and the farm walks and all these things combined together, we are seeing it that there's less time and less effort and less physical work, on average, required to run farms now.
Which are probably out grass measuring or
Mhm.
looking at your soil samples in the office, or there's other things that have nearly replaced it for time.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. But they're the things, and I think farmers are very much aware that that leads to profitability.
Yeah.
And they're the in terms of return of investment or return of in time, that's one practice in particular, that they know is worth their time.
Yeah. I think we're kind of coming into, well, for a lot of farmers that are on spring systems, we're coming into the quieter time of the year, and they'll have a bit of time now to plan for when the busy season starts again in spring. So I think, Martina, from talking to you today, get ready, start planning ahead, try and have your ducks in a row and have yourself organized for the busy season come the new year.
Absolutely, like when you look at the seasons in terms of workload on farms, a lot of farms, you will see it's like the steps of a stairs, Cathal. February is your highest. It steps down a little bit less for summer, autumn, and then winter is the lowest, in terms of hours of work. So look, farmers are absolutely capitalizing on particularly, December, January time, to get organized and prepared, for the spring. And there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of organization, a lot of planning and preparation involved to try and, I suppose, set yourself up as well as possible. So yes, drying off the cows in December, having a bit of a break, having just that task that's done twice a day, not having to do it, and to be able to just think, plan ahead, and, as you said, Cathal, get your ducks in order as best as you can. It really is a great opportunity for doing that.
Yeah, some great advice, and I think plenty for our farmers to think about. Martina, really enjoyed the conversation, and I think it's an important one. Sometimes people forget labour can be an issue on farms, but I think you've given us some really good pointers there today, and hopefully it's helped some of our listeners along the way. Thanks a million for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Deirdre.
So there you have it. Tune in next time to hear more interesting chats and discussion.
Myself and Deirdre will be back in 2 weeks' time, but do give us a review on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening to the Environment Edge podcast.